Captain Rodriguez sneered as he watched the slight figure adjust her rifle scope for the third time. Corporal Chen's going to embarrass herself again. Mathematics degree or not, some people just can't shoot. The words had barely left his lips when Range Officer Martinez's voice crackled over the intercom, cutting through the laughter of the assembled Marines. All shooters, check your targets. And somebody go examine the far wall at the 800-yard line. The snickering stopped abruptly as binoculars revealed a perfect three-shot group punched through the concrete barrier shots that had passed completely through their intended targets. Corporal Sarah Chen adjusted her Marine Corps utility uniform as she approached Firing Point Alpha at Camp Pendleton's long-range facility. At 28, she possessed an unremarkable build, 5'4", 130 pounds, with the kind of practical appearance that made her nearly invisible among the predominantly male Marines of Tuan Battalion. Her amber eyes, inherited from her Taiwanese mother, held a quiet intensity that most of her colleagues mistook for uncertainty. "Chen's up for her annual rifle qualification," announced Staff Sergeant Williams, consulting his roster. "Hope she does better than last time." Captain Rodriguez, the battalion's operations officer, shook his head dismissively. "She's support personnel military occupational specialty, 651, data systems administrator. I don't know why we waste range time on pogues who'll never see combat." Chen had heard variations of this conversation countless times during her 6-year enlistment. Her personnel file listed her civilian education as a bachelor's degree in applied mathematics from MIT, but that achievement only seemed to reinforce her colleagues' perception of her as an intellectual rather than a warrior. What the file didn't mention was her childhood spent at her father's side on the competitive shooting circuit, or the fact that Master Gunnery Sergeant David Chen had been one of the Corps' most decorated reconnaissance snipers before retiring to become a mathematics professor. The morning's exercise was routine. Marines from various companies were conducting their annual rifle qualification using the standard M401 service rifle at distances from 200 to 500 yards. Chen had drawn lane 12, positioned between two infantry Marines who were already discussing their expected scores with casual confidence. "What you shooting for today, Chen?" asked Lance Corporal Martinez, a machine gunner from Weapons Company. "Expert again?" Chen nodded politely while conducting her weapons inspection. "That's the plan." "Good thing they grade on a curve for support Marines," commented Private First Class Johnson from the adjacent lane. "Real Marines need real scores." The range safety brief proceeded according to standard protocol. Range Officer Martinez, a seasoned staff sergeant with 20 years of service, reviewed the course of fire and safety procedures. The qualification would begin at 200 yards in the prone position, then progress through 300-yard prone, 500-yard prone, and conclude with various standing and kneeling positions at shorter distances. Chen methodically prepared her equipment. Her M401 appeared standard issue, but a trained eye might have noticed subtle modifications: a precisely adjusted trigger group, custom wind adjustment turrets on the Trigicon ACOG scope, and a bipod that had been personally fitted and balanced. These modifications fell within Marine Corps regulations, but reflected a level of technical sophistication uncommon among non-infantry personnel. As the first relay of shooters moved to the firing line, Captain Rodriguez positioned himself in the observation tower with his binoculars. "Gentlemen, let's see some Marine Corps marksmanship," he announced over the range communication system. His tone carried the authority of a combat veteran who had completed 3 deployments to Afghanistan as an infantry officer. The first series of commands echoed across the range. Relay 1. With 40 rounds of 5.56 mm ball ammunition, you will fire 20 rounds prone at the 200-yard line. Load and lock. Shooters, you may commence firing when your targets appear. Chen's first 3 shots at 200 yards struck the X-ring with mechanical precision. Her shooting technique was textbook perfect: proper breathing, sight alignment, trigger control. But among the thundering rifles of her fellow Marines, her performance went largely unnoticed. The course progressed through 300 yards, where Chen again achieved perfect scores. At 500 yards, she delivered another flawless string of fire. Her shooting was technically proficient but unremarkable by Marine Corps standards. Several infantry Marines achieved similar scores and even surpassed Chen's times in the rapid-fire portions. "Chen's shooting decent today," observed Staff Sergeant Williams. "Maybe she's been practicing." Captain Rodriguez remained unimpressed. "Still, just basic qualification. Any infantry Marine should shoot expert. The question is whether she can perform under combat stress." As the qualification concluded, Range Officer Martinez announced the preliminary scores. Chen had indeed achieved expert qualification, but her score of 244 out of 250 possible points placed her in the middle of the expert category, respectable but not exceptional. "Acceptable performance, Corporal Chen," Captain Rodriguez commented as she returned from the firing line. "Perhaps you're developing some real Marine Corps skills after all." Chen accepted the backhanded compliment with professional courtesy. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate the training opportunity." What none of the observers realized was that Chen had been deliberately shooting to achieve a solid but unremarkable expert score. Years of competitive shooting had taught her that exceptional performance often attracted unwanted attention, and her current assignment required her to maintain a low profile while gathering intelligence for a classified Marine Corps program, evaluating advanced marksmanship capabilities. The morning's routine qualification had served its purpose, reinforcing her colleagues' perception of her as a competent but unremarkable support Marine. The real demonstration would come later, when an unexpected tactical situation would require capabilities far beyond those measured by standard qualification procedures. 3 hours after the completion of routine qualifications, Range Officer Martinez received an urgent communication from the Base Operations Center. A high-value target had been identified in the mountains 12 kilometers northeast of the range complexa. Taliban commander, who had evaded capture for 18 months and was believed to be coordinating an escape route back to Afghanistan. Captain Rodriguez found himself thrust into tactical command of the operation. Intelligence indicated the target was positioned in a communications facility built into the mountainside, conducting radio coordination with smuggling networks along the Mexican border. The facility was heavily fortified and positioned at extreme range from any feasible approach. "Sir, we've got assets moving to establish overwatch positions," reported Sergeant Major Thompson, the battalion's senior enlisted advisor. "But the tactical situation is challenging." Rodriguez studied the digital mapping display in the range command post. The target facility sat at an elevation of 847 meters, positioned on a ridge that commanded observation of all conventional approach routes. Preliminary reconnaissance indicated at least 6 armed guards, sophisticated communications equipment, and hardened defensive positions. "What's our maximum effective engagement range with standard infantry weapons?" Rodriguez inquired. "Sir, the M4 Awon, with 855 Awon ammunition, is rated for point targets out to 500 meters, replied Sergeant Major Thompson. Our MON 110 semi-automatic sniper system can engage area targets to 800 meters. The facility is positioned at 247 yards from our nearest feasible firing position. Rodriguez performed quick calculations. That's over 2 kilometers. We'd need specialized long-range assets that aren't available within our operational time frame. The tactical problem was compounded by environmental factors. Wind conditions were variable and gusty, with sustained winds of 12-15 knots and gusts up to 25 knots. Temperature was 34 degrees Celsius, with 78% humidity. The target elevation created additional ballistic complications due to the extreme upward angle of engagement. Sir, conventional wisdom suggests this engagement is impossible with available weapon systems, observed Sergeant Major Thompson. The mathematical calculations approach zero probability of success at that range with standard Marine Corps rifles. As the command group wrestled with tactical alternatives, Corporal Chen quietly approached the planning table. She had been monitoring radio communications while updating the Digital Intelligence Database, a routine task for a data systems administrator. "Captain Rodriguez, sir," she said with professional courtesy. "Request permission to speak." Rodriguez glanced up from the mapping display with mild irritation. "What is it, Corporal? We're dealing with a tactical situation here." "Sir, I've been analyzing the ballistic computations and environmental factors. I believe the engagement might be feasible with proper calculations and equipment modifications." The command post fell silent. Staff Sergeant Williams exchanged glances with Sergeant Major Thompson, both men struggling to process Chen's statement. Captain Rodriguez straightened to his full height. "Corporal, we're discussing military operations, not academic theory. The target is at 247 yards, in challenging environmental conditions. No conventional weapon system can achieve effective fires at that range." Chen remained at the position of attention. "Sir, with respect, I understand the tactical requirements. The M4 Aeon platform, properly configured with match-grade ammunition and environmental calculations, can achieve the necessary ballistic performance." "That's mathematically impossible," Rodriguez replied firmly. "The bullet drop at that range would exceed 15 feet, and wind drift calculations become completely unreliable." "You're talking about physics that don't support your conclusion." "Sir," Chen responded quietly, "physics, applied mathematics, and practice." Sergeant Major Thompson leaned forward. "Corporal Chen, what exactly are you proposing?" Chen consulted the tablet computer she carried for data analysis. "Sir, using 855 AWON ammunition with a muzzle velocity of 3.25 feet per second, accounting for the 1,847-meter target elevation, current environmental conditions, and ballistic coefficients, I calculate a required elevation adjustment of 11.2 mils and a windage correction of 3.7 mils right." Rodriguez stared at her in disbelief. "You're suggesting a single Marine, with a standard service rifle, can engage a target at over 2 kilometers with precision sufficient to neutralize a high-value target?" "Sir, the probability calculations are complex, but achievable with proper preparation and execution." The radio crackled with an urgent transmission from the reconnaissance element. "Command, this is Overwatch 6. Target is preparing to depart. Estimate 15 minutes before loss of tactical opportunity." Captain Rodriguez found himself facing an impossible decision. Conventional military wisdom insisted that Chen's proposal was technically infeasible. But the tactical situation offered no alternatives, and time was rapidly expiring. "Corporal Chen," he said slowly, "if I authorize this attempt, you understand that failure could result in the loss of our only opportunity to neutralize this high-value target?" "Sir, I understand the tactical requirements and accept full responsibility for the outcome." Staff Sergeant Williams stepped closer to the planning table. "Sir, even if the mathematics are theoretically possible, the practical execution requires capabilities that—" "Respectfully, sir, Corporal Chen is a data systems administrator." Chen maintained her professional demeanor. "Staff Sergeant, I understand your concerns. However, I request permission to demonstrate the feasibility of the tactical solution." Rodriguez checked his watch. 12 minutes remaining before the target's anticipated departure. The decision had to be made immediately. "Corporal Chen, you have authorization to attempt the engagement. Staff Sergeant Williams will serve as your spotter. Sergeant Major Thompson, establish radio coordination with Overwatch elements." As the command group began preparations for the unprecedented long-range engagement, nobody noticed Chen's slight smile, the first crack in her carefully maintained facade of professional anonymity. Chen moved to firing point Alpha with the focused efficiency of someone executing a well-rehearsed procedure. Her M401 had been subtly reconfigured during the tactical planning phase, bipod legs extended and locked, scope turrets adjusted to predetermined settings, and a small weather monitoring device attached to estimate real-time environmental conditions. Staff Sergeant Williams positioned himself adjacent with high-powered spotting optics, still struggling to comprehend the situation. "Chen, I hope you realize what you're attempting here. This shot is beyond anything I've seen in 20 years of Marine Corps service." "I understand, Staff Sergeant," Chen replied, while conducting final weapon checks. "Physics and mathematics don't change based on range." Captain Rodriguez monitored from the observation tower, maintaining radio communication with the Overwatch elements. "Overwatch 6. This is range control. Confirm target status and environmental conditions." "Range control. Overwatch 6. Target confirmed stationary at grid 32. SQB 847, 291. Wind conditions variable, 12 to 15 knots from the southwest. Target elevation 1, 847 meters above sea level." Chen consulted her ballistic calculations one final time. The extreme range required compensation for numerous factors that most Marines never encountered. Coriolis effect due to Earth's rotation, air density variations at altitude, and the complex mathematics of ballistic trajectory at maximum range. "Staff Sergeant Williams, I need real-time wind calls and target confirmation," Chen requested while settling into firing position. Williams peered through his spotting scope, adjusting magnification to maximum power. "Target acquired. Adult male, approximately 175 pounds, positioned at the communications console. Wind conditions. Jesus. Chen, the wind is variable across the entire trajectory. This is impossible to calculate." Chen's breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm she had learned at her father's side on competitive ranges across the country. "Wind call? Variable southwest, gusting. Best estimate, steady at 14 knots with gusts to 25. Chen made minute adjustments to her scope settings. Her calculations accounted for the fact that wind conditions would vary across the 247-yard trajectory, requiring estimates of average wind speed rather than precise measurements. "Overwatch 6. This is range control," Rodriguez transmitted. "Prepare for long-range engagement. Confirm target remains stationary. Range control. Target is mobile, but moving slowly around the communications equipment. Estimate 4 minutes before departure." Chen chambered a round of 855 AWON ammunition and settled into final firing position. Her heart rate, elevated slightly by the tactical pressure, settled into the controlled rhythm that competitive shooters develop through years of practice. "Staff Sergeant Williams, I need target confirmation and wind call on my command." Williams adjusted his spotting scope. "Target confirmed. Current wind, 14 knots, southwest." Chen's sight picture settled into perfect alignment. Target centered in the reticle, natural respiratory pause, finger contact with trigger. Years of mathematical study had taught her that ballistics were simply applied physics. But years of competitive shooting had taught her that execution required something beyond mathematics. "Sending," she announced, applying steady rearward pressure to the trigger. The M401 recoiled against her shoulder with familiar authority. Through her scope, Chen maintained sight picture and followed through, a habit ingrained through thousands of rounds of practice ammunition. Williams watched through his spotting scope as the 62-grain projectile traversed the 247-yard distance. Time of flight for the extreme range shot was approximately 2.8 seconds an eternity in tactical engagement. No impact observed, Williams reported. Negative on target. From the observation tower, Captain Rodriguez watched through binoculars as the target continued moving around the communications facility, apparently unaffected by Chen's shot. Overwatch. 6. Negative impact on target. Recommend immediate. Range Officer Martinez's voice interrupted over the range communication system. All personnel, cease fire. Range Officer conducting target inspection. The range fell silent as Martinez drove his utility vehicle toward the 800-yard target line. Chen remained in firing position, her expression unchanged despite the apparent miss. Chen, Staff Sergeant Williams said quietly. It was a good attempt. Nobody expected. Martinez's voice crackled over the radio with an edge of amazement. Range control, you need to see this. Proceed to the 800-yard concrete barrier immediately. Rodriguez left the observation tower and drove to the 800-yard line, where Martinez stood examining the rear wall of the target area. Concrete barrier designed to stop rounds that missed their intended targets. The barrier displayed a perfectly round hole, approximately .22 caliber in diameter, punched completely through 18 inches of reinforced concrete. Sir, Martinez said with professional bewilderment, this round passed completely through the intended target and penetrated the backstop barrier. I've never seen anything like it. Rodriguez stared at the hole, his mind processing the implications. Chen's shot hadn't missed it, had struck with such precision that it passed completely through the target at 247 yards, maintaining sufficient velocity to penetrate the concrete barrier. Overwatch. 6. This is range control. Confirm target status immediately. The radio response came after a long pause. Range control. Target is down. Single gunshot wound, center mass. Confirm neutralization of high-value target. In the stunned silence that followed, Range Officer Martinez whispered the words that would become legend among the Marines who witnessed that afternoon. Check the far wall. The aftermath of Chen's unprecedented shot created ripples throughout the Marine Corps that extended far beyond Camp Pendleton. Within hours, representatives from Headquarters Marine Corps arrived to conduct detailed interviews and technical assessments of the engagement. Captain Rodriguez found himself in the unusual position of documenting an event that challenged fundamental assumptions about Marine Corps marksmanship capabilities. His after-action report required multiple revisions, as technical experts struggled to verify the ballistic performance Chen had achieved. Corporal Chen, Rodriguez said during the formal debriefing, your shot has been confirmed at 247 yards, with environmental conditions that our technical manuals classify as prohibitive for precision engagement. I need to understand how this was possible. Chen maintained her characteristic professional demeanor. Sir, just doing my job. Physics and applied mathematics, combined with proper equipment preparation and environmental analysis. Staff Sergeant Williams, who had served as Chen's spotter, remained visibly shaken by what he had witnessed. Sir, I've been a Marine for 20 years, including 2 combat deployments as an infantry squad leader. I've never seen marksmanship at this level. The investigation revealed details about Chen's background that had been deliberately omitted from her official personnel file. Her father, Master Gunnery Sergeant David Chen, had indeed been one of the Corps' most accomplished reconnaissance snipers, but he had also served as a technical consultant for the Marine Corps Marksmanship Training Unit at Quantico. Chen's childhood had been spent not just on competitive shooting ranges, but learning advanced ballistics and mathematics from one of the military's foremost experts in long-range precision shooting. Her MIT education in applied mathematics had been specifically focused on ballistic computation and environmental analysis. Corporal Chen, Rodriguez continued, your personnel file lists you as military occupational specialty 650. 1. Data Systems Administrator. But your demonstrated capabilities suggest specialized training far beyond your official designation. Sir, my current assignment involves data analysis for various Marine Corps programs. The technical requirements occasionally involve ballistic computations and marksmanship assessment. What Chen didn't reveal, and what Rodriguez was beginning to suspect, was that her assignment to Twund Battalion was part of a classified program designed to identify and evaluate advanced marksmanship capabilities within the Marine Corps. Her deliberately unremarkable performance during routine qualifications had been designed to maintain operational security while conducting technical assessments. The tactical success of the extreme-range engagement had implications beyond the neutralization of a single high-value target. Marine Corps doctrine regarding maximum effective range and precision engagement capabilities required immediate reassessment. Sergeant Major Thompson, who had initially expressed skepticism about Chen's proposal, found his perspectives fundamentally changed. Sir, we need to reconsider our assumptions about weapon system capabilities and individual marksmanship training. Within weeks, Chen received orders for permanent change of station to Marine Corps Base Quantico, where she would join the Marksmanship Training Unit as a technical instructor. The official reason for her transfer was listed as Specialized Assignment in Marksmanship Development Programs. Her departure from Twund Battalion was deliberately low-key, with minimal fanfare or recognition. The classified nature of her actual assignment precluded official acknowledgement of her achievement, but the Marines who had witnessed the impossible shot would carry the memory throughout their careers. Captain Rodriguez's final evaluation of Chen's performance was carefully worded to maintain operational security while acknowledging exceptional capability. Corporal Chen consistently demonstrates technical proficiency and professional competence in all assigned duties. Recommended for advanced technical assignments requiring specialized mathematical and analytical capabilities. The morning before her departure, Chen conducted final equipment inventory and administrative procedures with the same methodical attention to detail she had always displayed. Her colleagues' attitudes had shifted subtle casual dismissiveness, replaced by a respectful uncertainty about her true capabilities. Chen, Staff Sergeant Williams said during her final checkout, I want you to know that what you did out there, it changed how I think about Marines and marksmanship. Chen accepted the comment with characteristic humility. Staff Sergeant, every Marine is capable of exceptional performance given proper training and opportunity. As her transportation departed Camp Pendleton, Chen reflected on the successful completion of her assessment mission. The Marine Corps' Advanced Marksmanship Evaluation Program had achieved its objective, identifying the potential for precision engagement capabilities far beyond current doctrine. Her new assignment at Quantico would involve developing training programs and technical procedures to expand these capabilities throughout the Marine Corps. The impossible shot at 247 yards had been just the beginning. The official record of the engagement remained classified, filed within archives that few Marines would ever access. But among the personnel who had been present that afternoon, the story of Corporal Chen's shot became a quiet legend proof that exceptional capability could emerge from the most unexpected sources. Years later, when former colleagues encountered rumors of Marines achieving impossible shots at extreme ranges, they would remember the data systems administrator who had demonstrated that physics, mathematics, and practice could overcome any perceived limitation. The laughter had stopped the moment Range Officer Martinez whispered those words, "Check the far wall." In its place remained respect for capabilities that had been hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to prove that underestimation was the most dangerous assumption of all. Subscribe if you believe that true marksmanship transcends conventional limitations, and that the most extraordinary capabilities often emerge from the most unexpected sources.